I think I'm gonna stay down here because I noticed that when I'm up here, I like to pace around. So, good evening, Rating Community Church. I've been waiting to say this for a long time. So, it's been a rough week. So much stuff has happened to me, and when it started, when Pastor Jay says, "Hey, Mike, you're up on Friday," that same day, what I'm going to talk about actually started happening to me. And it's near and dear to my heart. And it's something that for the last 7 weeks is a theme that God has been showing the church in general. So I'm going to go back and this is kind of a recap of last Sunday with Pastor Elman, with his sermon, "When Fire Comes, Will You Pass?" Out of 1 Corinthians 3, when he was talking to the Corinth church, talking about their malnourished breast milk. And they were talking about spiritual immaturity. And a lot of reasons why you might be spiritual immaturity is because your mindset and your thought process on how you view certain things. When certain storms comes, how do you react? Then you get past it. And then it happens again. How do you react? And then it happens over and over and over. How do you react? The Lord wanted me to touch on something that Pastor Elman was touching on the last 2 Sundays. So we're going to take a look at James 1, 2 through 6, and 12. I'm going to be speaking out of the Passion Translation. My fellow believers, when it seems as though you are facing nothing but difficulties, see it as an invaluable opportunity to experience the greatest joy that you can. For you know, when your faith is tested, or when the Cliff Note says, when faith passes the test, it stirs up the power within you to endure all things. And then, as your endurance grows even stronger, it will release perfection in every part of your being until there is nothing missing and nothing lacking. If anyone longs to be wise, ask God for wisdom and he will give it. He won't see your lack of wisdom as an opportunity to scold you over your failures, but he will overwhelm your failures with his general grace and with his open hand. Just make sure you ask empowered by confident faith without doubting that you will receive. For the ambivalent, meaning indecisive, person believes 1 minute and doubt the next. Being undecided makes you become like the rough seas driven across by the wind. 1 minute you're up and tossed down the next. Verse 12. Let me say that again. If your faith remains strong, even while surrounded by life's difficulties, you will continue to experience the untold blessings of God. True happiness comes as you pass the test with faith and receive the victorious crown of life promised to every lover of God. Now, I read this, and you ever read that scripture, or maybe you heard like a message and it really got you excited more than anything you ever heard before? When I read this translation, everything that I've been thinking over the last couple of years on Christianity and mindset, it was summed up in here. Especially with the way our church is structured and the calling that this church has for the state of New Jersey. I like to consider this church as like a spiritual warfare boot camp, because the things that God uses us for in this house alone, especially on Friday nights, and the way that people grow, you can't make this stuff up. We are built tough in the spiritual warfare realm because we're actually warriors of Christ. But the first thing that you have to get right is your mind, because you're constantly thinking. Now, the Bible is filled with a lot of scriptures. Have you ever heard the saying, "An idle mind is the devil's playground"? You ever heard of that before? No? Is this on? Anybody? No? Well, for Philippians 4:8 reference that. It says, think about things that are just, honorable, lovely, commendable, excellent, and worthy of praise. So more examples, Matthew 22:37. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. Colossians 3:2 out of the ESV, the Elman Speaking Version. Set your minds on things that are above and not on things that are on the earth. Romans 12:2. Do not be conformed to this world, but transform the renewing of your what? Your mind. Romans 8:5. For those who live according to the flesh set their minds on things of the flesh. Peter 2:3-1. My dear friends, now the second letter I have written to you. In both letters, I have tried to arouse pure thoughts in your minds by reminding you of these things. Now, as I know, that's all New Testament. Let's go to Old Testament. Isaiah 55:8-9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor your ways is my ways, to declare the Lord. As for the heavens are higher than the earth, so my ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. So we're going to break this down. So in verse 2, he stated that we should look at difficulties as an invaluable opportunity and experience. Now, why does he say that? It's because it's an honor to go through trials and tribulations. Why? Because honestly, some people get hit harder than others. Why? Because we've all been told that if we get hit constantly over and over and over, the enemy knows that when we go to a certain level, oh, we're bringing some damage. So we should look at our situation not as if we're being attacked, but we're learning through, like we're going through a boot camp. Because when we get through the storm, that knowledge, that experience is invaluable. Not everybody could go through the stuff that this church goes through. Why? Because a lot of people don't believe the way we believe. Don't push that the way we push. And now all I could talk about the people that I'm around and people that I experience other churches with and stuff like that. So that's my personal experience. Now, when you go through your trials, you have two options. You can look at it as bad, or you can look at it as a good thing. Now, for me, whenever you deploy, right, they have this kind of training, it's like MRT, and it's resilience training. It's like mental resilience training. And it's how you look at things, how you process things. So when things get rough, you don't freak out and you don't panic and stuff like that. And I guess that's something that always stuck with me. Always looking at the positive side of everything. I got deployed. Yes, I'm missing my family. You know, that's a year of my life that that's kind of almost wasted. You know, I gotta constantly worry if I'm gonna die. You know what I mean? Where I'm gonna eat, if I'm gonna sleep on the ground or sleep on a cot. But the way I looked at it is like, number one, I'm traveling, right? I never had to buy money on clothes because I wear one uniform all the time. And I was getting paid good money, and it was tax free. Free food. I loved it. Now, also, I know that the enemy for me, all I could talk about me, is the reason why I get hit a certain way. Because the enemy knows that when I reach a certain level, I'm going to find people just like me. Imagine another me running around in RCC. Whoo, buddy. And he knows it. And he's going to, you're going to lose more hair. But I know that I'm going to find more people like me. And oh, buddy, it's going to be revival going down. Now, it says, verse 3, for you know when your faith is tested. He said, for you know when. Notice he don't say if. When. The day that you said, I give my life to Jesus Christ, guess what? You already got a bullseye on you. He's coming for you. Now, when he comes for you, right, he's going to have you doubt your faith, right? What he might do is speak into your ear, maybe get you caught up in gossip. Maybe capitalize on an argument that you have with your significant other. A big one where everybody, finances, right? Because one of the biggest reasons for divorce in America is what? Finances, right? Another one that I thought was pretty interesting, right? I used to do network marketing, and I used to be around people who made $1 million+ a year. And I saw the lifestyle that they had. Now, I can't do much with that amount of money, but I just thought like the financial freedom and having a really cool car and stuff. I like that kind of stuff. So my goal was to have those kind of things prior to me coming to this church. And the enemy will he'll know the desires of your heart materialistic wise. Everybody has it. It might be a house. It might be, I don't know, maybe an entertainment center. For me, a man cave. Stuff like that. Yeah. And what he'll do is he'll bring you to that remembrance around people who actually have the things that you want. And he'll make you start like, oh man, that's not fair. How come this person has it? They don't go to church often, but yet again, he has this kind of stuff. Or I know I study more than this person, but yet again, God bless him with this stuff. And that's the way the enemy will have you. Like, why do I keep tithing? I keep being broke, but somebody who don't come to church got a nice car and a nice house, got a better job than me, blah, blah, blah. And the enemy will use that. Why do you think God allows the enemy to do things? Right? The second half of verse 3 says, it stirs up power within you to endure all things. Love that. But it also says, when your faith passes, it's not during the time, it's getting through it that your faith will get built because you've gone through the training. Now, the thing is, it doesn't matter what kind of storm comes your way or the size, because you will know what to do. And that's a key thing. I look at when we go through storms, I don't look at it anymore as the enemy coming after me. I don't think of it like that no more. Because the last time I checked, no matter what, God allowed things to happen. The devil cannot move unless God allows it to happen. So now when I get hit with finances or somebody's trying to come at me after work, I'm telling God, honestly, thank you. Because I know the more that I intake, the more that I go through is the more that I can help people in the situations that when time comes, I can help somebody else, because that's what it's about, because it's not about me. But I will take all the experiences that I can actually get. Verse 4, it says, then your endurance grows even stronger. It will release perfection in every part of your being, and there is nothing missing or lacking. Meaning you're going to be tough. Because you're going to look at it. Now, the enemy knows that after a while, when he can't get you with your finances, he got to do some work. He's going to try to find something else, right? And then that's great for us, because the more that we experience in different areas of our life, the more that we could come together as a church and help the community even more. Everybody's going to be on the same page, because I'm pretty sure everybody was broke at one point in time. Am I correct? And everybody questions like, man, when is the next meal going to come? You know, how I'm going to pay this bill, when I'm going to go on a vacation, stuff like that. Everybody's been through that. So there's people outside the outside world that go through the same problems we do, but because we've been through an experience with Christ and he delivered us from that, and those people are still going through it because they haven't found Christ or follow the way that they're supposed to follow Christ, we could give them that experience. Now, verse 5 is very interesting to me because he gave us the answers to the test. If anyone longs to be wise, ask God for wisdom and he will give it. Wisdom, right? Now, wisdom is applying knowledge, right? So what's the Bible say about knowledge? Hosea 4:6. My people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge, right? There was a second part of that I didn't even know, right? It says, because you have rejected knowledge. That's key. He's saying that my people lack knowledge because they don't want to pay attention. And honestly, that fits the bill for everybody in this building, because God has told us things numerous of times, showed us numerous of things, and we miss it, so we're rejecting it. And that was, when I read that, I was like, I always thought my people perish for the lack of knowledge. Yeah. But because you have rejected knowledge. How dare we reject knowledge? It made me want to read the Bible in a whole different way now, just because of that little verse. Also, knowledge, I said, is like experiences. So when we go through things and we go back to our little comfort area and we don't want to deal with certain iniquities or certain sins that we have that nobody knows but God, but we're like, I'm not going to deal with it. I'm not going to get on my knees. I'm going to act like everything is okay. You're rejecting knowledge because you don't want to deal with the situation to learn how to get through it so you could pass it on to somebody else. How are you looking at your experiences? Are we faltering? Right? And the definition of faltering is losing strength, momentum, or moving unsteadily or hesitantly. I know I have many a times until recent where God finally dealt with me in that situation because I said, okay, whatever it is, you're going to continue to allow things to happen to me. So obviously there's a sign that you want to show me of what you want me to do. God is always testing us and he proves it. So we're going to talk about Prophetess Jasmine because she brought the word. I was actually listening to yesterday and today. She brought about Judges 3, 1. I'm going to talk about 1, 2, and 4. Right? Where it was like the Israelites, they were in the nations, and they were surrounded by all the ites, the Hittites, the Jebusites, all the ites. There's a lot of them. Right? But there was a reason why. Right? It says in verse 2, only in the order of the generations of the sons of Israel might be taught war. Those who had not formerly experienced it formerly. They were being tested. They were for testing Israel to find out if they will obey the commandments of the Lord in which he had commanded their fathers through Moses. Let me ask you a question. What situations or what storms are surrounding you right now that God is using? What have you rejected from God that right now is surrounding you because you put yourself in that position? Because remember, she was talking about that they were supposed to kill off all the nations around them, and they said no. They started cohabitating with them, so they put themselves in a predicament. We need to be tested in order to build up our confidence, which verse 6 actually touches. Just make sure you ask empowered by faith without doubting that you will receive. That sounds like expectations to me. When you ask God, we got to come with expectations. Now, the definition of empowered gives someone the authority or power to do something. Where does that power come from? God, right? So he's saying, I'm giving you authority to ask me for things, but when you ask, don't be a punk. Tell me exactly what you want. But obviously, you know that we serve a king, right? So if you know anything about royalty, when they greet a king or a queen, the men, they will bow. For us, we don't bow. What do we normally do? We kneel. So when you go to God, right, and you want to come with confidence and say, God, I know whatever I ask, you're going to give me. You got to come correct. You got to get on your knees and really submit, because it's about, that is a sign of submission. Because it's easy to, like Pastor Jasmine also said, we want to lay down and pray. But when God got you up 3 o'clock in the morning and you cannot sleep, you thinking that you got like sleep apnea. But no, it's God wanted to talk to you and show you things. But we're not going to know that because we don't come correct when we come to God. Now, she also talked about, this is what I loved about her story when she was talking about coming to boldness, right? She was telling the story about Halloween and why she wasn't allowed to wear Halloween costumes. Her mom did not play that. The dopest thing that I heard was how her mom didn't tell people. She told her daughter, you tell people to tell them why you're not wearing a costume. Because her mom knew that who she was building up. She was confident that the Lord told her, I'm building up a prophetess. That's so awesome. Now, the thing with confidence nowadays, it's kind of like a dinosaur. Because I say that because some people, they look at confidence as cocky. And I think that's kind of weird. Because everybody's on this humility thing. Now, yes, you shall have humility, but some people are too humble. I'm going to be honest. Some people are just way too humble. When did confidence become a bad thing? Think about this. When he walked the earth for those 3 years, he was humble, but he had confidence. He'd tell people what's up. No filter. Like the woman at the well. She's I'm not with my husband. Yeah, that's not your husband. You got like 7 others. And we have to know the difference between confidence and false humility. And that the only way you're going to learn that is knowing what you're called to do. If you know that you're called to be a preacher or a teacher, right? You should take confidence that you know something that most people on this walk are too scared to even ask. Because they know when you ask, there's something that's going to come attached to it, like sacrifice. And a lot of people don't want to sacrifice. But when you know that you've been called to be a preacher or a teacher or evangelist, your walk is totally different. If God showed you that you're going to be a prophet, right? Your studying of the word is going to be way different because you have to study a certain way to get the knowledge that you're going to need to do your calling. So that's where the confidence comes in. But the thing is, when you start showing false humility because you want to mask behind your fear of what God called you to do, you start getting identity issues, self-esteem issues. And that is a problem in the Christian realm today. And honestly, it got to end. And just like I said, if Jesus was half-stepping, right, and he had false humility, or he didn't go with, if he didn't show the confidence that he had, where would we be today? He knew he was going to die on the cross, and he still do everything 100,000%. Now, if Jesus lives inside of us, what makes it so different? What makes it so much different than Jesus on our walk? If Jesus lives inside of us, because he is our example. The moment that you forget to emulate the mindset of Jesus while he was doing his ministry is the moment that you start your identity. Now, the definition of identity is the fact of being who or what a person or thing is. Your identity does go with your mindset. Because if you know who you are, then you know what authority you have. If you know what authority you have, you will know what to do when the storm comes and you would know how to react. If you know who you are, when the storm comes, you understand that it will build you, not break you. You will know that it will build you, then God could trust you with the knowledge because he understands that he's giving you for a purpose and you're not going to run from it. Because he will know that you will be able to apply whatever knowledge he's giving you through that experience the proper way. Pastor E did mention last week of us being builders. 1 Corinthians 3:9. For we are God's fellow workers. You are God's fields and God's building. Workers. We're doing work. Right? Talked about foundation. Right? We all have a foundation that we got to build. We are established that the Bible is the truth. We have proof that God has called us to build. Did Pastor E and Prophetess Jasmine talk to us like Similac Christians, or as Christians who have the ability to eat grown-up food? They didn't talk to us like, don't worry about it, it's going to be okay. No, they told us straight up what it is. Now, Prophetess Jasmine, also, Pastor E actually referenced Proverbs 23:7. As a man thinketh, so he is. If you think yourself a certain way, that's exactly how you're going to carry yourself. I pay attention. I wrote notes. It don't happen often. Maybe some of you are thinking that I might be coming off too strong. Listen, I could only give it how the Spirit gives me. And I've been battling with this. But the last 7 weeks, it's been talking about mindset. And it actually started when Pastor Monique Ross was here. Man, her message spoke to me in a major way. She said, no matter what's going on in your life, we have the responsibility to continue to do God's work. And she was talking about her own experiences, of struggling, thinking her ministry will not make it, but she still got to go out and give 1,000% when her life is crumbling. Do we do that? And this is a personal question. I know for myself, for a very long time, I would get into disputes with my wife, and you can see it all over my face. And I didn't worship God the way I should have, because I was allowing stuff to get to me, and I was actually disrespecting God on his time when I was supposed to give my all. And not only disrespecting God, but disrespecting everybody who rely on me to give 100% so they could get 100% as well. Because we talk about the energy and the spirit up in here, right? So if we're all dragging, is the spirit really going to move? We have a responsibility, not to ourselves, but to everybody around us. And I love the verse that says, there's no greater love for a man than to lay his life down for his brother. And I relate to that. And that's what I say, it's not about me. So laying down my life, right? Laying down your life, it means sacrifice. You might not talk about physically like dying, but sacrifice. Whatever's going on in my life, let me push it to the side, because you know why? I know Damien got a calling on his life, so I know he's relying on me to pray for him during the things that he's going through. It might be Pastor Jonathan, he's preaching Sunday, so I got to get myself right to pray during the message to ensure that he is covered. We have a responsibility, but it depends how you look at it at the end of the day. Now, next couple of weeks was really good sermons, but I want to jump to the next person who gave us a spiritual pop-out, right? And that was Prophetess Jasmine. She talked about our identity, issues, and the solutions to our identity. Then Pastor E, for the last 2 weeks, actually been reaffirming what those two ladies has been saying. That's the Holy Spirit speaking. I look at it like this. The prophets in the Old Testament, right? What they kept telling the people. They had one message people weren't hearing, and God is like, no, you got to understand it. So they kept saying, repent. The Messiah is coming. Repent. The Messiah is coming. Over and over and over and over. That's all you see in a lot of the Old Testament, because it was a clue. God wants us to know who we are and what he has empowered us to do. We got to get our mind right. We got to get in the game. Verse 8. I know I didn't reference it, but I love it. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. That's like one of my favorite verses. That means that if you're unsure and you're in doubt what you've been called to do, or maybe in your own household, like, should I really be married to this person? Should I really be at this job? Should I really be friends with this person? You're vulnerable, right? And you will go back and forth, right, in your mind. And then what happens, especially when you're talking about your calling and your gifts, when you go back and forth, when God gives you a word and you're feeling good, and then something happens, it's like a spiritual 8-ball, the little ball that you shake and it tells you your thing. And I think that's how we treat God sometimes. God, I pray for like 3 straight Fridays, hardcore. God, show me my gifting. Okay, you got the gifting of exhortation. Yes, God, gift exhortation. right? And then something happens and you're like, no, it can't be because I'm not really a positive person. And, how can somebody like me, because I struggle with pornography and I struggle with my mouth. How can I encourage people if I got a potty mouth? And then what happens is, God gave you. And then what you do? The next, you shake it again. Nah, that can't be right. Let me get the result that I want. That's being unstable. When God tells you exactly and in your heart, this is what it is, stick to it. But that's why you have to have your confidence. When God gives it to you, okay, God, I'm believing, I'm trusting you, I'm going to walk in that way. I'm going to jump to verse 12. If you remain strong, even surrounded by life difficulties, you will continue to experience the untold blessings of God. True happiness has come to pass with faith. If, that word, if. Now, before it was like when storms come. Now he's saying if. Right? Because we have the decision. That's the thing. Man has free will. That's what makes us different than any other creature on the planet. We have free will. We know what is right and wrong. So he's saying, listen, if you decide to stick it through and rely on my word, rely around the people that have surrounded you to help you. If you rely on me, you will get through this. Now, I say this all the time. I said, being a Christian is about making decisions. I say that all the time. But being an obedient Christian is about making the proper decisions. And that's where I'm at right now. We're blessed with the gift of free will. Now, with free will, how we are doing well? Are we praising God? Are we praising? Are we sacrificing our time for our brothers and sisters when you know that you're tired? Are you really willing to tithe the amount that you're supposed to tithe, even though times are rough? Now, there's two stories that I want to run through that their mindset to me was amazing. Talk about Paul and Silas in Acts 16:25. About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing the hymns of the praise of God, and the prisoners were listening to them. And then the shackles were broken. They made a decision that no matter what, they were shackled up. And the shackles were tied to like a wall. They couldn't move. That's how they had it in those days. Imagine being like this for like days. That gotta be really uncomfortable. Damien's back where they handle it. Oh no. And what did they do? Their mindset was like, we're in this? Are we gonna complain? What is gonna get us? God has brought me through. Paul went through some stuff. He almost got beat to death for preaching the word of Christ. And then the disciples, they passed him up, and the very next day he went to preach the word of God. That dude's a G. They didn't forget who they were, what authority they had, and what they were called to do. So they started praising. Verse 26, suddenly there came a great earthquake, so the foundations of the prison house were shaken, and immediately all the doors opened and everyone's chains were unfastened. Notice it didn't say the ground shook. It said the foundation shook. Because chains can stay on you, right? But the thing is the foundation is the reason why you're chained. It's the main root of the problem. So they said, listen, I'm not going to be shackled no more. The earth shook, broke, doors open. And that's exactly how I see when we go through our storms and we praise God and we say, yo, no matter what, I know I'm broke. I don't know how I'm going to get through the week. God, there's no bother stressing. You got my back. Things will happen. Right, Victor? Now, another one is like my favorite. The mindset of Joshua. In Numbers 13, when he went out to spy in the promised land, him and Caleb were the only 2 out of the 12 to come back with a positive report, the promised land. Everybody was like, man, there's giants and there's obstacles. we're not going to be able to do it. And Caleb was like, and Joshua was like, yo, we got this. We could overtake it. There's milk and honey. We could do all this stuff. The reason why he knew is the fact that he knew what God promised him, what he promised everybody. If God promised you something, no matter what's the obstacle, God promised you. If you don't believe that, are you calling God a liar? Now, this is how I talk to myself. When I go through a storm and I'm like, God, you said you were going to give me this, and it's been 2 years. Am I calling God a liar? Something to think about. Then he finished up with a popular verse, right, that every Christian says. In Joshua 2:5, right? Let me back up. It says, if it's disagreeable in your sight to serve the Lord, then choose for yourself today whom you will serve. Yet again, he's saying, make a decision. Who are you going to serve? Who are you going to believe? Who are you going to trust in? Are you going to trust in yourself, or are you going to trust in God? Are you going to trust the sight of your circumstances, or are you going to look at what you've been promised? You have a decision to make, but your mindset is going to be the reason what you choose, because if you're going through a problem, you're constantly thinking about it. That's why the helmet of salvation is so important. Then he finishes up a popular verse that every Christian likes to say. He says, but as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. He's letting everybody know, this is what I'm deciding, because he knows who he's been called to be. So tonight, make a decision, not who you're going to serve, because I know who y'all serve. But make a decision on how you're going to serve. Because for 7 weeks, the Lord's been saying, this house is blessed. I got things that's going to happen to this house that's going to elevate it to another level. We've been hearing it from guest speakers that's not from around here to come up in here and say, y'all going to do some things up in here. Then we have Pastor Elman and Pastor Don Marie and Pastor Jonathan dropping little nuggets. And the vision that Pastor E has is huge. To have a huge vision like that, God had to show him something that's going to come to pass. So we have a decision on how we're going to serve. And also, notice he's been saying, we got preachers, we got teachers. Some of y'all been called to help the youth ministry. Some of you been called to go to school. Some of y'all been called. Some of y'all been called. So we have a decision to make, because he's letting us know that God already told us what we're going to do, but we have to make the decision if we're going to walk in it. No matter what storm or fire comes your way, we have the helmet of salvation to protect what God has told us. How many more times does God got to let us know that we have to start being confident in our walk? And it's no surprise that Pastor Elman chose 1 Corinthians 3. Who was Paul talking to? The leaders of the church. And that slapped me dead in the face. And you know what? This message is more for me than any of y'all. Because I know what I've been called to do. And for a long time, I was running from it. Because I was scared of the outcome and how much time I had to put into what God has called me to do. And he said, listen, do you want me to give it to somebody else? Nah. And that goes for a lot of people in here. And y'all know who you are. You cannot control how many tests comes your way, but you can control how hard it impacts your life for the good or the bad. Thank you.